like to once again welcome you, and I'll go ahead and get started. So first, I'd like to talk to you all a bit about illicit discharges and GIS. So first of all, I'm going to ask you guys a quick question, and it's just a guess. Just take your best guess, and it's just a little bit of fun for us to start off with, okay? So the question I have you guys today is, what is the most common example of stormwater of illicit discharge? Okay, if you answered B, you are correct. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, the most common example of illicit discharge is commercial landscaping. Now, let's go ahead and continue on. So illicit discharge is defined as any substance other than water that enters into a stormwater system, your stormwater drains or pipes on the roads, in your neighborhoods, on the town mall, wherever you see it. If it's not rain, hail, or snow, it is a discharge. So, and the most common examples of these is, the first example is landscaping. The second one would be car washes. The third one is sewage leaks, and the fourth one, a very common one as well in Murfreesboro, is construction sites. And I'm sure construction sites is in very recent days is something you've seen quite a bit. So, and what I'd like to do right here, right now, is to urge all of you to, if you see any type of oil spillage, any type of discharge of any kind into a storm drain, to report it directly to us at Stormwater. My contact is up here on the screen if you would like to take a note of it. A part of my job, and a part I take very, very seriously, is investigating and locating these discharges. Because, like I said, once again, what goes into these drains are just rain, snow, and hail, natural water, because these drains do not go through the sewer system. They go directly to West Fork Stones, they go to East Fork Stones, to Middle Fork, they go directly to your rivers and streams. And so to help to the betterment of our natural water resources, I'd like for you all to be a part of that and to help to report these illicit discharges when they do come about. Now, question number 2, a little bit more fun for us. Which infrastructure is the most abundant in Murfreesboro? And you guys can just take your best guess. Drains. Everybody says drains? That's the easy one. You guys should get that. That is an easy one. So yes, drains, there are over, I believe the last time I checked, 7,000, might be 8,000 now, drains in Murfreesboro that collect your storm water. And so I'd like to introduce to you today your public stormwater map. This map is available for you guys to use to learn your drainage system, learn your grading of your homes, to see how good the water drains there, to make sure that there is a lack of flooding in your neighborhoods, in the areas that you frequent, and is also to help you report where discharges are. So if you catch a discharge and you want to go see exactly where, you don't know exactly where it is, you can go ahead, access this map, and it'll have your location there prepared for you, or you could just go home and go to the street you've been to, and you can point out the exact drain, pipe, or infrastructure that you've seen was impacted by a discharge, and you can send that information to me, and I can do my job just a little bit easier. And so I have a small example of how this map looks. This is Stones River Mall. And this is the amount of drainage that is there. I picked this because, one, Stones River is more of the lower lying places in Murfreesboro. So when it rains, a lot of water builds up in this area, such as the need for all the drains and pipes that you see. And also something that is very specific to this area is right by a river. So any discharge that goes into any one of these drains would go directly to the river quicker than most drains in Murfreesboro. And that is a direct impact. And I'd like to show you guys, we also have a large quantity of maps in our department, just a lot for your use. And just if you want to have fun and see the projects that we do, the things that we invest in, then you can go on our site and you can go to Stormwater, or you could go to GIS maps, and it will be right there directly for you. I'd love for you guys to just go and check out our website and look at these maps and enjoy them. They're very easy to understand, and it's just a lot of fun to use. Now, question number 3. This is an easy one, I feel. No, I think it's a bit harder. You think so? What is the amount of water needed to grow a garden for 4 family members? And you guys can just take your best guess. C? Everybody says C? Wow, that's the first one you all got wrong. And here we have the answers B. You need 6,800 gallons to grow a garden for a family of 4. Now, to conclude, I'd like to go everything I said again. Illicit discharges are anything other than water that is entering the stormwater system. And I'd like, of course, for you all to be a part of this and to help to report anything you see, any businesses you see, any if you see somebody with a tank on the back of their truck and they stop by a drain and dump it out, I'd love for you guys to give me a call. That'd be great. And my contact information, once again, is up there for you guys to see. Okay, well, thank you all for coming.
So I am from MTSU. We have a stormwater permit too, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we partner together. Can you hear me okay? We've had a co-permit since around 2010, 2011. And we've decided, we did a statewide education program across the state for stormwater programs, just like the city of Murfreesboro. And then when the universities got pulled in, we decided to come together and try and help them with their education and outreach. So a lot of you have probably seen it like farmers markets. We do a lot of farmers markets, business mailings, neighborhood door hangers, just kind of any way we can reach out to the public, homeowners associations. We do a lot of outreach with schools. We've got some other partners that help us as well. So part of the reason, and Josh, when he comes up here, he's going to go over some of the measures that we're required to have to do for EPA. So all this is tied to the Environmental Protection Agency having their Clean Water Act, and then those regulations that drill down through the state and then come down to the local cities. And so there's a lot of requirements that are on the agencies to enforce participation from citizens. So that's kind of why these events and you guys coming is a big part of our program, is awareness of how the pollution starts, everyday simple actions that you can do, and then kind of what's happening behind the scenes, the stream assessments that happen, the monitoring, and how that all plays into the overall health of our streams. I'm used to standing up and moving around. So we have a lot of education materials back here too, and I kind of wanted to walk through a few of those so that they can maybe help you with some of your questions and answers too. So one of our local partners that we work with all the time, they're a fantastic resource, is the Extension. Does anybody go over to the Extension office over off of Bill Rice? Okay, so master gardeners, we usually have a lot of master gardeners in here. Everybody's nodding their head. We're all here for gardening because that's why you got your rain barrel. But I did want to put some of the main resources just for you to share. First of all, Mitchell Moat, they do a program on Thursdays, usually at 9 on WGNS, and somebody comes from Extension and shares. But almost any question you have regarding your yard or your farm, they're so knowledgeable. Mitchell Moat is one of our best partners. You can take a picture of a problem you're having with a plant, and he can identify it. He has a lot of lawn and garden care, so he does a fall lawn. I think it's scheduled for September 9th. So if you're not sure if your machine is calibrated when you're adding your fertilizer, he'll help you kind of assess proper calibration techniques. What's the right fertilizer to use? What's the amount? How do you calculate that on your yard? So a lot of these resources exist already, and we want to make sure that you know where to find them. So one, they have a YouTube. The best thing that happened in COVID is it forced everybody to learn how to do things virtually really quickly. So a lot of these things we had, but it kind of, had a little bit of an expanse when COVID came and everybody was trying to create a virtual self. So they have YouTube videos, and that's kind of what this link is, and it's just some to kind of kick you off if you wanted to find, if you have a garden, cover crops, and how that adds nitrogen back to your soil. landscaping with native plants. Native plants are important because their root zone is so much deeper than regular turf, and so we have a program in the city where we give away free trees, and that's for anybody that lives beside a stream. So we really try and buffer those streams with vegetation, and that's helpful in two ways. One, it catches a lot of the litter if it was to blow off, and we go in and do cleanup events, but also the roots help to filter out the pollution before it comes. And so that's our first line of defense, is keeping that vegetation beside our stream banks to absorb any runoff that happens. It also helps a lot with erosion and protects your property. So the native plants specifically are so much more beneficial than turf because you can have root zones down to like 24 inches. In some cases 12. So they're just really strong line of defense for protecting for property. So if you do have a stream, let's just have a raise of hands. Does anybody have a stream on their property? Okay, great. Well, usually it's March we kick off trying to coordinate that. Anybody in the city is welcome to get it. We do target and do a mailing across the city. We have about 5 sub-watersheds that we kind of target. But we'll do a mailing to one of those a year, and we'll try and do a letter to every homeowner that lives beside that stream. So our last one was at SportsCom. We handed out trees, and it was kind of around the Bear Branch. And was it Bear Branch? Okay. Sinking Creek is usually we do it at SportsCom too. So I was like, which watershed are we on? But we will kind of go around and give those out. So if we don't send you a letter, you're still welcome to reach out and come and get those plants because that's so beneficial. That's one of the programs that we do. Being at MTSU, we partner with a lot of our students to make sure that they participate in litter cleanups and tree plantings and stuff like that. So our two big events that we do with our partners in the city as well that protect our local streams is at Old Fort Park. We do a Lytle Creek. We usually do National Public Lands Day there. And we remove invasive species that kind of choke out our native plants and trees, and then we do a litter cleanup. So usually it's the first or second week of April, we try and do Park Day. That's a national holiday that we partner with the Stones River Battlefield. And then National Public Lands Day is usually the last September, the last week of September. So those are two events that we hope you can come out and participate with us, or tell your kids and your grandkids because they got a lot of energy, so have them come out. But those are two events that are really good for trying to protect and help restore the area. Another thing to remember on that, because we have to get participation, one of the requirements actually for our program is to get the public involved and have participation. So a good way for that is your high schoolers that have to get their hours for volunteering. Or your civic groups a lot of times that will do volunteering. So if you're like with Rotary's come out a couple times. But so that's a lot on native plants. And the reason we kind of go into that too is we want 3 levels on our streams. We want a high canopy that helps to shade. We also want the lower levels for habitat and then our grasses. And so anytime we can kind of build that diversity in, it also helps us to build the habitat that these little critters, if you've got one of these towels, it kind of builds the habitat that's essential for these. So a lot of people don't get excited about bugs, but we do. This is a little handout that kind of shows what they look like as well, so we can pass this around. But Josh can kind of talk about it as well. But we do, we actually can identify with what's kind of critters that you find by the diversity, how many different kinds of certain species, and the numbers that you see. That's one determining factor in a biological way that we tell the health of the streams. And why that's important is a lot of times your best animals are super sensitive, like the ones we get the highest quality numbers for the health of our streams are really sensitive to pollution, and so those die off first. And then we get the nuisance critters. So like your mosquito larvae, they can withstand all kinds of pollution. So if we want to get rid of mosquitoes and stuff like that, we really kind of want the healthier. And also like your dragonflies, they need that habitat. They'll lay their eggs actually in the water, and then they'll climb out of the stream later, and then they'll emerge and get their wings. So those are just some things of how nature kind of all ties together and how this correlates our habitat and our fish species that are dependent on the bugs that help us with that diversity of wildlife. And the other thing I just want to say on that is I don't think people realize how much biodiversity is here in the Southeast. So when we think of diverse rivers, what's the first thing that comes to mind? So you might want to toss it out. Fish, but where? Where do you think the most diverse? Oh, I love your enthusiasm. Where have you grown up thinking it has the most diverse, in the world? Well, you guys, I love it. You guys are all USA. Well, like the Amazon, everybody used to think the Amazon had just the most resources. But really in the Southeast region, almost all of our salamander species are here. Most of our animals are found in the Southeast region. So a lot of our turtle species, our fish species, our amphibians. And so guess what's happening here? We're having this huge growth, and so a lot of these animals are at risk. So they can, and they're also usually susceptible to pollution. So, the things we do with our stormwater program also helps us with the diversity that we're trying to protect as well. So a couple of the other resources that we wanted to share is the Did You Know, if you're not for sure about some of the waterways that are here. This was a brochure that we did that kind of talks about where they are, some common pollutants. And the purpose was to let everybody know, everybody lives on a waterfront property because we all drain to that storm drain that Perez was talking about. So we all live on a waterfront property. This is just a quick little handout for actions you can do at home, simple things that help us to kind of protect that you might not have thought about. And a lot of these are actions that we do normally, but we don't realize how it also helps to benefit the water quality. So the biggest thing is whatever drains to the drain, try and deter anything from draining to that storm drain. Let's see. We also had this on the Stones River watershed. So a lot of us are partners or members of the Stones River watershed, and that funding, it's all volunteer, so that funding goes back into the community as well. So the things we can't buy with our programs, because we're all limited on money, a lot of times we'll divert that money into resources that go back in into our community. I do have a couple things after if you want to look at them, just like about the Stones River watershed. I've got a handout you can follow through. And then the last thing I want to leave you with is we all live here, and it's karst terrain and our sinkholes. So sinkholes used to be a trash dump. Everybody used to think, that's where we used to put our trash, unfortunately. People realize now more that that is a direct connection. We don't have the soil there, so anything that drains into your storm drain, into the sinkhole is basically like a storm drain, and it drains to the nearest river as well. So if you do have sinkholes or anything that come up, you can contact the engineering, but also we want to protect those as well. And the best way on that, because we do live in a property, in this geology where we get sinkholes a lot of times, is you want to spread that water out and let it soak in slowly in a large area as you can. If you do concentrated flow with heavy flow, sometimes we'll see those fallouts, happen. So spread it out and soak it in slowly as much as you can. And then there, on your handout, I should have covered was soil testing. Anytime you do amendments, you can actually go to the extension and soil test your property. And that's very cheap. I think it's like $10 and it costs hardly anything. But you can actually do that and send off, and they'll tell you specifically what your nutrients need for your garden or for your lawn. And then there's a program called Tennessee Smart Yards that they're offering, and this gives you a lot of tips on that program. This is a healthy way, healthy things that you probably want to do for your yard anyway, but you don't realize those are also beneficial things to kind of help our water quality and help your yard. It beautifies your yard, brings a lot of wildlife in, I think that kind of covers the biggest part of ours, is trying to get you guys knowing what's out there, who's some of our partners, how we want you to partner with us. Hopefully you've seen us at some of the events. I feel like a lot of you guys we kind of know or have seen at other places. But do you guys have any questions for me? Well, we are very glad you guys are here.
I'm just going to real quickly, because I know everybody is ready to start talking about rain barrels, and that's what y'all came here for. But since y'all are sitting here, I'm going to real quickly go over our stormwater management program. And I think y'all can tell already that the program is a collection of a bunch of different groups of people, a bunch of departments within the city. There's a lot of hardworking people to go into the stormwater program. So it's not just us right here, it's a lot of other people too. So I'm going to go over that. Actually, the permit that both Perez and Cynthia talked about, our state permit, it requires us to talk about our stormwater program, give you all information about that. And so that's kind of what we're doing here. We just used the rain barrel workshop to kind of slip that in right there. But anyway, so we'll go really quick, and a lot of this we've already been over. What is stormwater? I think a lot of folks are familiar with the bottom image there, right? I mean, it's a drain in a parking lot. As Perez said, did you give a number on the amount of curb inlets that we have in the city? It's tens of thousands of them, and they're all taking runoff off of paved surfaces, rooftops, and you can imagine what's in that runoff. And then a lot of times, these stormwater infrastructure, they go to a detention pond. Has anybody seen a retention pond? That's pretty common. We'll see some examples of some other techniques are used to treat the stormwater. And then lastly is, like Perez mentioned and Cynthia mentioned, the stormwater ultimately comes to a local stream. And so I don't know if can you see Cynthia back there behind the trees? That's her. And that's her working hard in the river. That's the West Fork of the Stones River. Does anybody notice what is in front of her in the water? There's some trash likely. I have to also plug Parks and Recreation. They're out with volunteers cleaning up trash all the time in our waterways. But actually in the water, the green stuff, algae, that's it. And so this is in an area of town, an older area of town before our standards were required, where we have to use detention basins, bioretention, different techniques to treat the stormwater. This was an older part of town, so a lot of the stormwater comes directly to the stream, and in this case, it's actually polluting the stream. We've got algae growth and nutrients, so that's kind of an example of why we want to protect and prevent pollution and stormwater runoff. So after I said I was going to go quick, I spent a lot of time on that one slide. But about the stormwater program, so as was mentioned, municipalities of a certain size, they have to have a permit from the state of Tennessee which to discharge stormwater into local streams. So we have a permit. Like Cynthia mentioned, we are in the permit with MTSU. We share a permit, so they're responsible for some permit items, and then we're responsible for others. And the ultimate goal here is to prevent pollution and stormwater runoff. The permit is broken down into about 6 objectives, management measures, and then a little bit about how we fund the program. I'm sure everybody's seen the stormwater fee that's on your water bill. That helps us run this machinery out here that you see. The building that we sit in right now, the Water Resources, they have a vacuum truck there on the left that's clearing out the lines. That not only helps the flow and the conveyance in the lines, but it keeps sediment out of local streams. So if the sediment gets in the streams, like you see over there, it'll bog down the bottom of the streams, and then the habitat on these napkins or dish towels that you see, those delicate organisms, they won't be there. And then when the state comes out and assesses our stream, they may be impaired or polluted. So anyway, that's what these trucks do. We've got street sweepers that remove tons of debris off of the street before it gets into local waterways. We have education contracts with Project WET that Cynthia mentioned earlier. Rutherford County partakes in that too. And then it helps us comply with our permit. And then it also helps fund water quality projects. Now, the one on the bottom, has anybody heard about the Town Creek daylighting project? That's pretty neat. I think it's still in the design phase. I told myself I wasn't going to say much because we're not actually the department planning and engineering with the city is involved in that one, but it's basically a stream that was put in a culvert, which was pretty typical in the 1940s and 50s. And we've since found out that's not good for water quality. They're going to actually, what they call daylight that stream, bring it out of the culvert. And it's actually the stream that runs alongside Cannonsburg. And so that's an example of a water quality project. Hobgood Elementary School, that was in a sensitive watershed. And so as an existing parking lot that had contaminants that went to local streams, we used paver blocks there. We retrofitted the parking lot so that the stormwater would soak into the ground. That's another example of a water quality project. And then the one on the top here is our most recent one. And this is in the Oakland Court redevelopment project behind Oakland's Mansion. And what those are street side bioswales. So what happens is when it rains, the water hits the street and it sheds off the sides, goes into the gutter, and instead of going into a drain and then going directly out to, in this case, Sinking Creek, it will soak into that native vegetation. So that's what that does, and it really reduces pollution in this watershed. And I'm going to move pretty quick now. So these are the measures: education and outreach, illicit discharge detection elimination, which Perez talked about earlier, construction site runoff. So that's the silt fencing. Our engineering department does that. And the stormwater control. So here's an example of the silt fencing. And so our engineering department has inspectors that go make sure that all the construction sites are properly secured with that stuff, and then making sure, especially the ones next to streams, that they're leaving the buffer that Cynthia talked about along the stream. And then we'll talk a little bit. So we have a group of inspectors that actually look at the stream side buffers, make sure they're not being disturbed during construction and afterwards. And then they inspect the stormwater controls that go in the ground. So what you see on the bottom, that's an underground storage area. So that's for stormwater. It holds it there for a period of time and then releases it slowly. And then up top is kind of a variation of the bioswale. So it uses native vegetation that lets the water soak in off the parking lot and treats it. So anyway, we have inspectors that look at those. And anyway, lastly, we have to, in the city, we got to make sure that we're not polluting. And so we have pollution prevention, good housekeeping of municipal operations. So we go around and we make sure that our operations are not causing stormwater pollution. And then we're doing techniques to reduce pollution. So that goes back to the street sweepers and the vacuum trucks. And so, and then lastly, monitoring. So this is actually professional biologists that we're required by the state to go out and look at our streams, and they're professionally assess them with for the bugs that you see on the dish towels. And so that's required once every 5 years, and that's what they're doing there. And so they give us a score, and the score has a really long name, but anything above a 32 is deemed clean, and anything below is not. So we're required to do that as well. And just to wrap it up about the stormwater management program, on our website, if you care to go look, if I haven't bored you enough already, we have all of our management tools there in the stormwater management program website. We welcome comment, input. All of our policies and procedures and forms and checklist standards are there. And so anyway, and then we'll kind of get into the rain barrel stuff now. So 3 tips for watering plants. This kind of, we're segueing over to using the rain barrel. And so I'm just giving you 3 tips here. So watering in the morning is best. Did anybody know that before? Okay, so that's, I've gotten into a habit of watering at night. For some reason, I thought that was better, but I suppose not. And then Another tip is just to use rain gauges to kind of keep track of, does everybody here have a rain gauge? Keep track of what we've received, how much water your plants may need, and just make sure when you water your plants, how many people water over the top of the leaves? Has anybody installed a rain barrel before? You have, right? So did you have to cut your gutter? No, you didn't? Okay. A lot of times the gutter is, and I'll say one more thing about stormwater, the gutter is going straight down to the ground, and has anybody put some energy dissipation or something there to break up so it doesn't scour around your around the downspout? This prevents that, so yeah, it helps with erosion within your yard as well. And so what I've been told is that the best thing to use for cutting your rain barrel, your downspout, is either tin snips or a Dremel. And tin snips probably work pretty well. And so what you want to do is you want to get it, and this is pretty self-explanatory, but just right above there, right above the barrel, and then you basically connect it in, and we're provided different connections here, however you want it to come up over the top of the barrel and enter the barrel. And probably the best way to connect those are with self-tapping screws. And so I think when we tried to demonstrate this before, the regular screws didn't really work that well, and so we found that self-tapping screws work the best. Of course, these barrels have mosquito screens on them. We also recommend that you empty them, as we approach the first freeze, and it's got a little drain down here. And then also you can use wire, so if this is attaching back to your gutter, we recommend that you stabilize it with wire, because you may be losing attachment down here at the bottom that was harnessed to your house. So anyway, so that's pretty much it for installation. Does anybody have any questions about installation? I'll open this up. Anybody else that wants to comment?
Does the barrel have to be elevated above the ground? Because I've seen some people with it, they put blocks or something. I know with the agriculture center, I think they got it.
Yeah, I think that would make it a lot easier to distribute the water. Yeah.
It also helps with that gravity helps with the pressure on it, so you get better flow.
Yeah, and someone may be able to correct me on this, but I think you can also attach, if you were to elevate them, you can attach with this one here so you can have a series of rain barrels.
Your average size roof is actually going to fill that barrel up and overflow it in your rain. It's like 1,000 square foot home. You can do the calculations on your home and your roof, but you'll usually overfill that barrel, which is your first rain.
Yeah, I think we had a demonstration out in front of our office, and we had just a little small 10 by 10 foot awning, and yeah, it'd fill it up in no time.